of your stuff that you direct, you also write?
Very little. That's why.
Was it more like back in the day?
It was no, I wrote features that nobody made, and then I rewrote, because I did, the first things were Amazing Stories, which I wrote the first one, then they hired me to rewrite the second one, and then I got a Tales from the Crypt, and they said, rewrite this and direct it. And so I was more in that ballpark, and then I got into, I got into comedy, I guess, and comedy is not that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Once I got out of genre, because I was in I did a Vietnam War story, so I got to rewrite that and direct it, which was an HBO series. And once you get into comedy, there's a writer's room and there's sort of this power dynamic, and that's a whole different animal. And I think I got it in that track.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read a interview with Ted Danson, who. Mr. Mayor.
Love Ted Danson. The nicest guy you'll ever meet. Everything you hope is true. Everything nice you hope is true about Ted Danson is absolutely true.
Nice. That was not what the interview was about how nice he was. But he was saying, which I thought was really interesting, I never heard anybody express it this way, that he'll take a break from doing comedy and do drama because he needs a break from comedy. Not because he doesn't like being funny, but because comedy is so exhausting to do. Yeah. Whereas, like he was saying, I think in the interview, where it's like drama, like you could show up like drunk and in a bad mood, and or hungover, and the camera you're looking at you, and they go, "Oh, this is interesting. What's going on?" Right? Yeah. Whereas comedy, it's like you're hitting you got to hit your marks. It's not about the camera can move in at a leisurely pace. It's much more like an athletic event, I think he said. Yeah,
it's about. For years, comedy got so little respect at the DGA that I would say comedy is harder than drama, because the comedy that I like, and comedy's changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. But I like stuff that has emotional truth. So it's got to be dramatic. It all comes from my time at the Larry Sanders Show, but it has to be emotionally true, and it has to be funny. So drama sort of has to be emotionally true, and that's all you got to do.
Right.
I don't do or relate to or watch things that are just jokey. I don't understand that.
Right. I forget which season it was, but it was from Larry Sanders Show, which we should talk about that at some point, because you directed a gajillion episodes. You won 2 Emmys for Larry Sanders?
I won
Emmy?
1 Emmy.
Oh,
was nominated
2 for Malcolm in the Middle.
2 for Malcolm. Was nominated for like 6 Emmys for Larry Sanders, something like that. Crazy number of Emmys. We never won, because in the beginning, what your young listeners may not know is that cable was not eligible for the Emmy at first. Right. That's why they
I didn't know that.
That's why they created the Cable Ace Award.
Right.
Which the Ace Award also, it had to be the Cable Ace Award because there is an Ace Award for editing. So it was the Cable Ace. And then eventually Emmys allowed cable in. And now, of course, it decimates the Emmys. But for a while, we'd be nominated. We'd lose to a Frasier episode, or Mad About You. It went on and on. At the DGA Awards, too.
Right.
Lose every time. I didn't win it. Never won a DGA Award for Larry Sanders. I won it for Malcolm.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Interesting. I was going to say I forget which season it was, but I don't know if it was the poster or the cover of the DVDs. Mm-hmm. The DVD. Season covers, and it is this shot of Gary Shandling where you can't even see his face.
With his head in his hands? That's like the obvious.
Right. No, it's obvious, but you go, instead of the the big smiley faces into the camera, it's like that's the show. This is
the show, yeah.
Yeah, right. So it brings that the sort of that element of drama in.
But I learned it from. I honestly I never, ever thought of myself as a comedy person, ever. But I was always that kid who would say the thing that was so obvious in the room that nobody else would say, both to relieve tension in a dysfunctional family, but also to make, and I got the laugh, you know what I mean? And so I would be kind of shocking because I was like naming the elephant in the room. But so I just got comfortable with that kind of humor because it was part of my life, And so when my agent called and said, "What do you think of Gary Shandling?" I said, "Oh, I like your show." And it's Gary Shandling's show. I said, "I think it's smart. It's funny. I don't watch it much, but I liked it, And so then I saw a couple episodes of the Larry Sanders Show that hadn't aired yet. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I get this. It's dark enough that I get it, You know, it wasn't to me a comedy. And then I learned from Gary, who was a genius. Honestly, he's a great genius, not an easy man to work for, but he was a genius. We'd come in with these scenes and we would run them. And if it didn't make dramatic sense to Gary, everything stopped. And we would sit down and figure out, what does Larry want? What does Artie want? What does Hank want? Why are they entering the room? What are they leaving with? We intellectualize all of that. And then they would take all that information back to the writer's room. And the genius of the Larry Sanders Show was they could make that hilarious. You know, they could make all those intentions that were all now true and correct.
The writers.
The writers, yeah. I don't know how much of that Gary wrote. I think relatively little, I think. I think it was a lot of super brilliant writers that got fired in a revolving door kind of scenario. But Gary understood what was going to be real and deep and meaningful about it, and then he knew when it was funny. He certainly knew when it was funny. He could turn it that way. So he had a lot of input. But anyways, I learned to chase emotional truth on that show in comedy.
Right. Well, he was also very conceptual. I mean, like bigger, like the Gary Shandling show.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the first really meta show.
Probably was, yeah.
But it probably was, right? Where the theme song is, it's the Gary Shandling show.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, it was just,
true.
It's Gary's
It's
show.
like WandaVision.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's like the first WandaVision.
Right. Yeah. So, so I remember, as a younger adult, older than you still. But as a young adult watching the Gary Shandling show and just thinking like, what planet did this come from? It's like he's blowing apart the fourth wall. It's like...
Yeah, it hadn't been done. And he was good at that. I mean, he did that twice in his career, which is, I heard one of your podcasts was saying, it was Jeff Astroff. Mm-hmm. Everybody has one good show. Gary had two.
Right.
Which is hard to do.
Right.
They're both really interesting. And Larry Sanders was I call it my Playhouse 90 days. It was like directing with a whip and a chair, because we had a multicam rehearsal week with table reads in the Monday, and then we had like literally the writers run through, the studio run through, the network run through, and then we shot Thursday and Friday 17 pages 2 days in a row, because we were three cameras in a 4-wall set. Mm-hmm. So it was this kind of shooting style that we kind of invented that then went off to become a million other shows. Like immediately it was Arliss, and then it was what was the sports night
with
and then it became Larry David. And Ricky Gervais told Gary and I at the Emmys one time that he just took his entire style, all his shooting ideas from the Larry Sanders Show. He took everything from the Larry Sanders Show. He was very complimentary.
That's nice. Did you work on The Office?
I did not know.
Okay. Yeah, because Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
I guess you're not British, so.
No, and I didn't. I never got The Office, honestly. It wasn't dark. It wasn't dark, and I didn't ever understand the Steve Carell character. I just didn't. I didn't understand. I didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, that show will never amount to anything. So.
And I was at Wayne's World, and I said, I don't get this, and I turned it down. And then somebody, Penelope, right?
Penelope Spheres.
She directed it, and I said, I saw the movie, and went, oh, she totally got it. And I literally knew I just didn't get it.
That has to happen a lot. I mean, I know it's happened to me, where it's like you read something and you go, I don't get it. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's like your agent.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these taste filters that change the destiny of...
But it's almost like, why? Why isn't it more empirical? It's like, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's a silly question, I guess.
Yeah, it's based on your DNA, your cultural DNA, your entertainment DNA, basically.
I know.
What makes you laugh? What makes you... Like, my husband loves comedy, and he watches it all the time, and some shows make him just breathless. He's gasping, wheezing. There's that one Wipeout, or
he's an easy laugh anyway.
The original Japanese Wipeout, the one that the Japanese iteration of that, I would hear him across our house just like gasping. Oh, you're watching that Japanese show again, aren't you? Because it just makes him. And I don't laugh like that. I tell me, on all my comedy shows, I tell people I don't laugh, so don't. In fact, I was doing an episode of Friends, my one and only episode of Friends, and the director ahead of me, I shadowed in rehearsal, And he was laughing like a hyena, like at everything. And I went to him. I said, if I need to laugh like that, I'm the wrong person. Like I was in a panic because I don't do that. I don't know how to fake laugh. Linwood Boomer from Malcolm, he made all the writers laugh in casting. And I was given the pass because I said, I just don't do it. It sounds fake. I just can't do it.
Right. But you know why they do it, right?
Just
The directors?
To encourage the actors to make choices?
Maybe. I heard that because I saw the first time I ever saw a director do that was a while ago. It was on a Canadian show when I was up in Canada, and they were going to put a laugh track in afterwards, right? So
they're building a pause,
right? So they're building a pause, but they're cueing the sound team to know where the laughs should go, and he would modulate, what kind of laugh he was doing. Based on how big of a laugh he wanted in the soundtrack.
I see.
Right. So there was
no one trained me in that. I had no training.
It was apparently, and I said, "Is this comedy?" He said, "Yeah."
I came straight out of the Larry Sanders Show into Friends, and so we had a similar rehearsal process.
Right.
But I knew nothing about the multicam form when I did that episode.
And Friends shot in front of a live audience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't. But some directors just do that. I mean, Jim Burrows is famous for having a big booming laugh that everyone waits to hear, but. I don't know. I don't know how to use my laugh as a tool. It's just genuine, and you have to surprise me. Yeah. Gary would always try his stand up on me, and I would just say, "Please don't, please don't." And he would just always no. Here's the joke.
Was it because you were the challenge? It's like,
I
can get Todd to laugh.
I go, please, and he would only make me laugh when there was a built-in surprise because I'm a curmudgeon. And so if I go, oh my God, I feel the structure of this joke. I'm a cerebral curmudgeon. I feel the structure. I know how this joke is built. I can feel the punchline coming, and they want me to laugh. So you have to completely subvert my resistance. So this is the one joke I remember from Gary. It's just so dumb. But what do the Pope and a Christmas tree have in common?
What?
They both have balls as ornaments. That made me laugh because I did not see it coming.
I remember the one Gary Shandling joke I remember was I think it was at the end of the Gary Shandling show where he's like talking to camera at the end, and he's looking into the camera and he goes, well, I had a date last night with Miss Georgia. All right, it's the former Miss Georgia. All right, it's George Foreman. And I remember watching it going, that's just so brilliant. And while also being screamingly obvious.
Yeah.
It's like once you get Miss Georgia and former Miss Georgia, you could, you're just waiting for, okay, what's the third shoe to drop?
He always had that, when he had this famous run that he would go, I took my dog to the vet and I told the vet, I said, my dog's penis tastes bitter. Is that normal? He had one of his jokes, and you don't see that coming,
Right.
But anyways, we digress.
I feel very very confident thinking that this is the only podcast that will be released the week that we release it that has a bitter penis joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson Whitfield, and I am the executive producer of The Gilded Age and one of the directors, and you are listening to the WritersRoom Pros podcast.
When does Monster High air?
Monster High comes out day and date on Nickelodeon and Paramount Plus on October 6th.
Oh, okay.
So we have some time. But we're doing...
Well, we're not going to time the release of this podcast for that. We try to do that sometimes. It's like...
No. It's a long time. We have very low budget, and so none of it's got like over 300 visual effects shots, and none of it was put in motion until picture lock. So it was like, it's the way you save money.
Right. And you shot up north.
We shot in Vancouver, yeah.
Vancouver, okay. Yeah. Was that good? Good experience?
Oh, I had the best time.
I hear that a lot from people who shoot up there.
For one thing, I'm not a sunshine person. I think I honestly have the rare, 10% of people have inverse seasonal affective disorder. I think I have that. Blue skies bum me out. I'm not built for California. I hate being hot. It rained.
You're a depressing person. I've never been so depressed. Blue skies,
and that's the opposite.
Blue skies bum you out.
Blue skies bum me out. My husband says I'm the only person that looks up in Hawaii and goes, "Oh God, it's clear again today." I'm like
another day in paradise.
And I like to be in Hawaii when it's raining and storming, but And like in November, it was like a super wet November. It rained like 27 days in November, and I was bummed on the 3 days it didn't rain. You know what I mean?
I thought you were shooting inside.
Yeah, well, and then I was terrified when I realized we had to shoot outside a couple times. We had 4 exterior days,
Right.
and everyone was in peril. Every one of them was in peril. It was so wet in the fall. I had a great time. I realized very late in my career, my first TV movie, it might be the perfect form for me. Features have always been these snake pits, where I never. There's too much time. It's like the way I've always thought of it was you have 2 hours. You have 2 hours of material, and you have like a year for all the nervous Nellies to just wring their hands to death over those 110 pages, right? So you're just constantly defending the writing and constantly defending the intention and the creative goals, and it's just exhausting. And I have to direct, and I don't want to do that while I'm directing, And television, you have you're shooting a half hour in 5 days, or a pilot in maybe 8, and maybe you get more if it's a 1 hour like Stitchers. But people kind of stay out of your way because the train is moving so fast that they know if they step in front of it in any way, it's going to cost money. So there's this great adrenaline in television that really suited me. And it gave me, believe it or not, I thought I had more autonomy as an auteur in television, in network television, than I actually had in the features I did. And then came Monster High, where it is this crazy, ambitious, low budget fever dream that Nickelodeon has. And it was just they needed someone to be in charge of it, and you have to align with the brand. It's the hardest part because there's the big IP surrounding it, and it's Mattel is driving this original reboot and reconceiving all the characters based on their intentions with their toys. But once you get that figured out, like nobody knew how to turn this cartoon into a live action thing, and nobody stood in the way. So I got all of it. I got this big canvas. And as long as you could do it for no money, and we did, Fred Andrews, who designed Stitchers, was a production designer. Fred worked miracles, and I knew he would, which is why he's the only American that I fought to get up to Canada, because I knew I needed somebody who could find the fever dream in it and make it beautiful and original in a way, and not just some sort of knockoff of something, because we didn't have them. And of course there's the Addams Family, the movie version of this, but that cost $80 million, and we didn't have that. Right. We had 12 and a half, and it's a musical. Basically I said it's a monster world it's monster characters in a monster world, and they sing and dance. It's like Star Wars. Every prop is custom. Every single extra has to go through a design process. They have to have a conceived look with hair, makeup, wardrobe. I mean, we had to call out exactly how many extras were in everything, and it was small. I mean, if you watch the same people are going by all the time.
Look, werewolf.
Yeah. So anyways, but I had a great time. I had a great crew. The cast was amazing. I love young casts. I think they're so joyful, and they're so much fun to work with. And it was my first musical, so that was super thrilling.
Was it potentially like a backdoor pilot, or was it specific?
No, they're trying to build a franchise.
Okay.
I've been brought in to now co-write story on Monster High 2.
Oh, very nice.
So we're starting work on the sequel, just the story work, and trying to make it as tight and clean as the first one. The first one worked out really well. So
who wrote the first one?
It's the Eddies rewrote the Eddies, and Matt Eddy and Billy Eddy. We did the rewrite they did the rewrite, but we had to brainstorm. We had to do 2 rewrites in a very short amount of time. One was big and conceptual to get a green light, and the next one was to get the budget, because it was always like, we don't have the money to do all the obvious things you think you would do. The big third act set piece. We got to be smarter. So I invented this branded tagline that says, "We're going to win in the small." And I said
that on the back of the WritersRoom Pro
I said
mugs.
that to every single person I met. We're going to win in the small, because we did not have the money. So we got to win on emotion. We got to win on character. We got to win on small turns that are really deeply felt and they're joyful and suspenseful. And we managed to do it. You have to keep the number of characters There's no extraneous characters in the frame. You just can't afford it.
Both as a writer and a director, like what's your way into story?
I have this problem where I go right to the, small emotional moments. Like I see emotional imagery, and then I'm sort of backing my way out of the room. I'm way up close to this character in this moment, and I have to back my way out of the room to figure out how I got there and is this worth working to get there? Like I am detail backing up to concept, and or I have a concept and I have, it's hard. I've tried to find that balance, but I always see an emotional image of a series of them. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to figure out if they're important, or if I believe they're important, how do I get to them? You're very different. You're very cerebral. That's why, you have your unity of opposites, and if it's an amazing system,
I'm very conceptual, and then I find my way into the smaller moments.
Yeah, see, you and I work completely opposite.
Completely different, which is weird that we actually work well together.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it also makes sense as a director. I'm going to go for these emotional moments, emotional truth and turns, and then you struggle to find the theme.
Yeah.
And you know that 28% of TV right now is streaming. 28% is broadcast, and 35% is basic cable still, which is all amazing to me, because my experience is that all of it's streaming, none of it's broadcast. That's how I live. But so it's amazing. But streaming has this ability to parse out story. It's just a crazy problem. I love that the pilot doesn't have to answer all the questions and set up the whole world. I've done that so many times, and it's exhausting, and it's never a great episode, Right. So I love that streaming they know they have 10 episodes typically, I think, and so they can break that story across multiple frames basically. But I also remember seeing my expectations are so different. I saw the poster for King Arthur. I thought, oh my God, great. I love that story. I'd watch that show. And then I found that it was a movie. And I went, oh, well, that's going to be terrible, because suddenly it's going to be this legendary style action movie with $10 billion of special effects and very little story, very little emotional story, because you can't fit all that into 2 hours.
You're talking about the Guy Ritchie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't fit all that in the 2 hours. So when I thought it was a Netflix show or something, I was super excited. Because I said, I'd love to learn more about, I'd love to not learn, but I'd love to just experience that story told over a big canvas. It's kind of goes back to Cheers. It goes back to network television, ironically, because it's I always remember the day I finally said in my brain the lyrics to Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. I go, oh, that's network television. That's why CBS is still such a powerhouse. People want to go to the familiar. They want to walk into a murder scene where everybody knows their name on CBS. But that really affected how I built pilots from then on, because I realized, oh, that's what we're doing. We're creating this welcoming space that whatever it is, it's a welcoming energy for comedy, obviously. And then there's a consistency to it, and there's people know what they're getting. It's a little Starbucksy, you're getting this very clear product. So you're fulfilling an expectation. And as I say with all TV directors, our jobs is when you do episodes, our jobs is to emulate and elevate. So you're always trying to raise the bar on the series, but you need to conform.
Right. Well, that's part of the joy of episodic television, is that you're returning to to the familiar, but there's a reward. I mean,
that's Stitcher's line, isn't it? Return to the familiar. Wait, is that a Stitcher's line? Oh, wait. Oh, it's from
not everything's about Stitchers.
It's from some script. I swear to God, Return to the Familiar. Okay.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, anyway. But but you get rewarded for in your brain, it's like comfort food, right? There's a reason why macaroni and cheese, is one of the most popular foods in the world.
Well, as I always say, fettuccine comedy to me is like fettuccine Alfredo. It's best served as a side dish.
You are a curmudgeon.
That's my thing. Nobody wants a full plate of fettuccine Alfredo. It's too much.
I kind of do.
I don't. I want horror comedy,
You want-
drama comedy. I want sci-fi comedy. I like humor because I also intolerant of humorlessness because I think it's just like the Tony Scott problem. You know what I mean? Where they have no sense of humor at all, and I just don't relate to it. I'm not macho in any way. And so when people behave humorlessly, it just seems so unnatural to me, and I couldn't do those shows. Or like really dark supernatural things that are humorless. I don't relate to them.
This is from the guy whose dream is to have a side dish of linguine Alfredo during a thunderstorm.
Yes, exactly.
that's your perfect afternoon.
What's better than scary fun? That's why Monster High was so exciting to me. What is better than scary fun?
Kids, there's a tornado outside.
Yeah.
Let's make some fettuccine Alfredo and go eat it.
I realize I have a very high tolerance for emotional suspense, and that my children did not inherit, which is really interesting. When something gets, particularly if a character is about to embarrass themselves or they've lied and they're about to be caught, they'll leave the room. Like, oh wait, the writers created this so we would be anxious for this hero. Why get back in this room? It's like that. I go, don't you leave this room. Somebody worked hard to make this.
Eat your fettuccine.
I live for that. I live for the breathless sense of anticipation when something terrible might happen to somebody I care about.
This is one of the things I liked about Malcolm in the Middle is like everybody always felt like they were on the edge of something horrible happening to them, but in an environment where you knew it was safe. It's like the roller coaster. It's like, okay, I'm probably not going to die on the roller coaster, but it's really scary.
What's kind of fun, we just started watching that with the kids. We hadn't done it, and they asked to watch it, so we sat down and started watching Malcolm together, and they loved it, which is very rewarding. But it's kind of like how we grew up. Like most people we knew survived their childhood. So you did a lot of stupid shit, but you got through it, you know, and that's what Malcolm was like for me. And people always asked if we made it consciously retro, and we're like, no, we just all, I guess, modeled it after our own childhoods. And so visually it was modeled after, Linwood's and mine. And so, no, it just ended up being a simpler version of, there were no phones, no cell phones, and we weren't written in.
Did you direct the pilot?
I did, yeah.
Wow, amazing. There are a couple of, please believe me, this is not me, sucking up to you or pandering. And I think I've probably told this to you already before, that there are a couple of scripts like TV and and film that I looked at and go, it was just absolutely perfect. Like absolutely, I would have to be a bigger curmudgeon than you, which we know is going to be impossible.
That's hard.
In order to find something wrong with it. It's like the original Toy Story. Well, pretty much all the Toy Stories are like that. And the Chuckles Bites the Dust episode of Mary Tyler Moore's show, like another perfect. From writing to directing. There's an episode of Malcolm which I had seen and going, oh my God. This is absolutely, the perfect, conceptually,
Bowling?
how he's directing.
No.
I forget the name of the episode. And then I discovered, I'll tell you, but I discovered afterwards that you directed it and somebody else that I know, Globerman.
Okay. Which
Michael
one
Globerman.
was it?
It was the one where it's the school fair is going on. And like the conceptual stuff, there is the older, I'm blanking on the characters' names.
We just watched it.
Yeah, but there's the older brother who...
He's having a high-speed romance.
High-speed romance.
Yeah.
He meets a girl. He meets a girl. It's like they go through the honeymoon phase. It's the cute meet, the honeymoon phase, and then the breakup all within an hour at this outdoor fair. But it was brilliant. That part was conceptually brilliant because of you hit all the tropes of cute meet and our relationship's a little bit in trouble, and I think we're gonna break up now with all we've meant to each other.
Exactly.
Like all those lines.
3 hours.
Yeah, it was fantastic. But and then the other story was Malcolm is being asked by and he's been keeping how smart he is from his family. Because he doesn't want to stand out.
He has to be weird.
Yeah. So, but the math teacher is trying to do like some something there.
He has his special act he's going to do.
Yeah, no, but I know she ropes him into it, right?
Yeah.
Right, because he doesn't want to do it
Yeah,
because then it's like pulling off Batman's mask. People will see what his superpower is.
Yeah.
Right, and he's just this math genius.
Yeah.
And he sees that the thing that she's trying to do is nobody's liking it, and he feels so sorry for her.
Yeah.
Because she's kind of like, a bit ditzy but sweet.
Yeah.
And he gets up there and he does, math magic.
Yeah.
And the best part is the family is there,
Yeah.
like watching this. They had no idea.
Yeah.
And they get in the car afterwards, and they're absolutely dead silent. They're all just sitting there. And I think finally it's the younger brother who goes, "Dad, is Malcolm a robot?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think Bryan Cranston goes, "No, he's just smart."
Yeah.
Really, really smart.
Yeah.
And I go, it was such a beautiful episode. And then they undercut it right away.
Yeah. They start somebody.
Yeah,
It's almost a fart joke or
it's
something.
a fart joke.
Yeah,
and, right.
exactly. Yeah.
And then they undercut it right away. But I'm going, oh my God, there was the directing, writing, performances. It was so perfect. This didn't believe
That was a tough
good.
one. They wrote the entirely exterior day episode that we had to shoot in November. So we scheduled that. I always say we scheduled that like a German train. We had to like shots were numbered. This shot goes from 11:10 to 11:27. This shot goes from 11:27 to, and if you didn't make it, the sun was setting and you had to, so that was a big challenge. We had to have certain things we knew we'd shoot against walls that we could light to make them look like they were outside, but because we had no cover of any kind on that episode.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a good episode.
That was terrific.
The best thing about that Malcolm was, I always call it the kitchen table writing, and that kind of was in that ilk in that sense. And then what happened was season 2, we got double banged in sweeps for an entire month. So they had to write 8 sweeps episodes. 8. Because we got a 1 hour time slot every week for sweeps. And so everything got big. Well, that's when we went to Vegas and we blew up the house. And I mean, we did so much giant stuff. Then they had trouble winding it back after 8 straight episodes of massive
over the top. Yeah.
Over the top. And so I just thought Malcolm just became, I kept saying, what happened to the kitchen table stuff? It's harder to write because there's no gimmicks.
Yeah.
So
No, some of this. I also remember at some other moment, not turning into a Malcolm retrospective, because I'm saving that for when you get the Lifetime Achievement Award from the DGA.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully they'll invite me to speak.
Thank you. Yes.
But it was a cold open in Malcolm where the kids are, I think it's Malcolm, and I don't know if it's both brothers or the older brother, but they're on the couch and watching some insanely violent TV show, and you can't see what they're watching. You hear it, gunshots and explosions and stuff.
Yeah.
And the mom comes in, and the kids are sitting there just kind of like watching. And mom comes in and says like, "Why are you watching this stuff?" And she changes the channel, and you hear some sort of light kid show. And as soon as she puts on this like light level, like Barney kind of show, they start fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like hey, that's my popcorn. No.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Again, but
that's real life though.
That's real life, right? So but that's the type of conceptual stuff that you miss. Somebody who's just like joke, kind of often, not always, but can often miss those kind of things.
As Jeff Ashraf says, most people have one good show and it's ripped from their lives, and that was Linwood's. That's Linwood's family, and he is Malcolm. Linwood was the genius in that family, and he had to go to special class, and all those things are real. And when I got sent that pilot, and it was like all Linwood. He never done single camera. He comes from multi-camera, and he just knew it was so dark it had to have pretty light. That's all he kept saying. And I kept saying, it's not that dark. It's kind of hilarious. But but he knew it had to have beautiful light. And so we made sure that Victor Hammer shot it, and we made sure it had beautiful light. It was golden, washed with golden light. But it's the darkness that supports the humanity of the comedy. That's what made Malcolm so great to me.
Right.
When it got to be, I'll be honest, I did a movie and came back to do the season 6 opener. And so I watched the close of season 5 where literally Reese has lied about his age and he's fighting in Afghanistan. Hal has gotten some kind of been the scapegoat for some kind of Enron style scandal at his work. And Lois has had a nervous breakdown and she's making pigs out of Clorox bottles, like thousands of them. And I looked at this and I went, what the fuck happened? Like, where's my family that I knew and understood? So I came in, I saw the season 6 opener, which I'm dealing with all these same ideas. And I went to Linwood and I said, Linwood, just so you know, I'm going to ground this to every single emotional idea I can find in this script, And he goes, okay. And then because I didn't understand, I wasn't a family I recognized anymore.
But that's not uncommon in television, where it's like there's this evolution of the family. Like, I guess maybe it's less common in comedy, especially if you're dealing with the comfort food, the macaroni and cheese, where you want to come back to it. But that was, I'm sure, a slow evolution on that.
It was just the writer.
All right. So one last question for you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you've worked on where you go, I wish I could redo that? Not because not necessarily that it was terrible or something like that. You just say, oh, you know what, I've changed, or the material has changed, or the world has changed. I wish I could hit the redo button on that one particular thing. Could be a script, a project, whatever.
I do, but I don't talk about it much. Let me see if I'm going to do this. Yeah, I do. I was hired to come in and do an episode of the reboot of Amazing Stories. And it was touted as it was a very contentious series, and everything went through multiple masters, including Mr. Spielberg. And I got the script that everybody said was the only script that everyone agreed on. And it was this sort of a haunted house boogeyman story with 5 12-year-old girls. And went through the entire process in Atlanta, I was there for 2 months, 3 months, and it was a big thing, a big expensive hour of streaming television, and a series of collisions took place where the writer was right by my hip for the 90% of the movie. She and I were high-fiving and all this stuff. But between that moment and wrapping, and Mr. Spielberg changed his mind about the tone of the show. He wanted Amazing Stories to be more adults, and he decreed no more kids. And so they were cutting other episodes to limit the kids who were written into them. He wanted a darker show, more grown. I don't know. I'd never had a conversation. And so my episode was 5 12-year-old girls, and that's who was in it. That's what it was about. I thought we'd really done some really rich, dark work. It had an underbelly to it that was very emotional. The girls being chased, haunted by this boogeyman creature that's going to kill her in theory and consume her. And but it just ultimately it wasn't favored, and they shelved it unfinished. And it was heartbreaking to me because of the kids and how much I invested in them. And it was late in my career, so I was deeply confused at how communication can be so flawed, at how people can change their minds so late in the game, and how $8 million can just be shelved so easily without a discussion about what can we do to make this more like the new vision of this. And it reflected badly on me, obviously. So that's why I hesitated to talk about it. But it was a lot to recover from emotionally, and it just crushed my spirit, And so, but I don't. So I would want. I realized the script everyone agrees on is the one no one's read carefully. The script you argue over is the one you read, and you give notes and notes and notes. And I didn't do that math in my head. So I feel like I'm very much aligned with the showrunners and the writer on set, and we're all making the same movie. And that was out of sync with the system. And I got caught in the middle. And I would love a redo on that. I would love a redo on the whole process. I'm doing these big tonal dog and pony shows. I mean, I'm doing everything I do to when I make pilots. I'm showing them everything I'm going to do. There were no cards hidden. And yet the result was, I mean, it's the first world problem. It's devastating after investing so much. We all invest, writers, directors, we all invest so much creative heart into things we do, that to have it to return so badly, I don't even say misunderstood. I don't even know. The whole thing is so mysterious to me. So that's a very honest answer. I'd love to redo that. I would have loved to recut it. I would love to reshot something for it. I would love to do anything I could to make that make sense at that moment in the market. Whatever that market was, it was Steven's image of himself or that show. And the show died a terrible, abysmal death, because no one watched that, I don't think. So, but that's why there's only 5 episodes. I was the 6th.
Wow. Well, it's funny when you were talking about like the script everybody agrees on is the one that nobody's read. I remember I used to do sales training like 100 million years ago. And there was this principle that that if, as a salesperson, you're showing somebody a product and they don't have any questions, they don't want it. Right. Yeah. But the people arguing, it's like, why is it worth this? How come it doesn't do this? This one is so much better. That means that they're actually really interested in it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I've never kind of applied that idea.
I realized
to this.
No one had bothered to study what was in those pages.
Right.
They all just said, oh, this is the only one everyone agrees on. And then I realized, well, that was the problem. And I didn't identify it. I couldn't see that. I didn't force them to engage. And honestly, it changed. And I was pleasing the showrunners, and they landed at some moment deeply out of sync with Steven. And that's why I said, I don't need to be a nice guy anymore. Like, I came into Monster High going, here's what's wrong. Whatever I wanted to rewrite, I rewrote. Writers aren't going to like hearing this, but there's no writer on set. I got to shape it every day, remembering every single day what happened on Amazing Stories. I said, no, this has to be great, and I'm going to be the one to make it that way, because I'm the one whose career is going to go down the toilet if this thing doesn't work. So I'm not going to stop until this thing is everything it can be. And I don't really care whose toes I step on. and I end WritersRoom Pro with that little quote.
And on that happy
little note, but it was I got burned. I got deeply burned by a system that was. I mean, you're talking about these to 8,000 pound gorillas in the room, and I was not in a conversation with any of them.
Right.
And so it was really unfortunate. I said, no, this can't happen again. I'm not trusting that the system has my back. Mm-hmm. In TV, you come and do an episode, and I'll be honest, the problem with this whole show, the original Amazing Stories had a writer's room. I never spoke to them. Mm-hmm. I wrote my first episode. I rewrote my second episode. I never spoke to the writer's room. McGarris, lovely man. I'm friends with him. But they had a writer's room with Richard, what's his face from?
Matheson.
Richard Matheson was there. I never spoke to them. I had no reason to. I was a writer-director coming in. The new Amazing Stories was structured like television. With a writer's room and the edict of here's the script and do this script like an episode. And I got caught in the middle because I wasn't told this is your movie, make it what you want. I was kind of told it was an episode. I love the collaboration process. I love when a writer and director are in such creative sync that it just becomes this joyful collaboration. That's really powerful to me. And I work for that I realize that's so important to me, but it goes beyond that. I realize one of my big missions on every job, I don't know when this happened or along the 35 years, I'm here to build the crew and the company. I'm here to build a company as a team. And if I don't succeed in doing that, I have failed on this project. And it happens on every job. I can feel it when it happens. It's like even on an episode of Grace and Frankie this last 9 days, a grip will walk by and just touch my back as he passes by. And it's just a gesture that they didn't have to do, but and it happens. And then I was doing Sons of Tucson episode, I remember, and there was I wanted to do this flashback. That was my idea to this Christmas thing. And they said, look, the social workers here, the flashback was an extra thing. If we have time, we'll do it. And I really, really wanted this flashback. And so the art department said, your Christmas set it was a Christmas flashback to some performance thing. Your set's waiting. And so we had like 10 minutes and we walked with the social workers staring at us with this minor child. Walk in, and the set was a giant roll of cotton batting. It was sitting there as a roll. And I just fell to my knees and started tearing this cotton batting into drifts of snow. And I suddenly look over, and the key grip is tearing cotton batting and the cinematographer is doing it. And I said, oh my God, they're mine. I won them. They're on board this. They feel respected. They feel appreciated. They feel, that's so important to me. And that extends obviously to the writer partner, but the company needs to feel like what they're doing. We're all growing old doing this. You want to know that you're doing it with good people and that you're valued. And Gary Shandling said, he'd take a good idea from anybody. Mm-hmm. And I've always lived that way. I said, I don't have to I will steal the best idea in the room. Absolutely.
I think we're going to title this episode, Todd Holland, the curmudgeon who loves people.
Yeah, exactly. Please.
Anyways,
Anyways,
thank you so much.
Sure thing.
I know